they're back, and oh boy, are they back. So, Unleash the Archers, I've only reviewed one of their albums so far, which was the previous album. The name escapes me, but it was a concept album by Unleash the Archers, and I gave it a pretty good review because overall I actually quite liked it. They're a power metal band, which is something I'm not usually keen on, because when it comes to power metal, you usually have lyrics about castles and dragons and knights and saving a princess, and it's just incredibly cringy, and all the lyrics are all the same thing about how I slayed this dragon one time, and then this other time I again slayed this dragon this one time, and then again I slayed this dragon just this one time, which is ironic seeing that they keep saying this one time I went out to slay the dragon of Avalu and Avalar and Agrabah and goodness knows what. So I kind of despise the lyrics because they're rubbish to begin with, and then every power metal band just does it over and over and over again. It's not really relatable, it's not really genius, it's just cringy. And then musically, they have the sound, like power metal has a sound to it. And then because when power metal bands come around, they go, well, we want to be power metal, so let's have that sound, and then let's do the power metal type of lyrics. So therefore, everything is monotonous and it's just repetitive. It's insanely bland. Now, Unleash the Archers have done a fair few other albums before the one I got into. Apex, that's the album I reviewed. And the album before Apex was kind of okay. It wasn't really great. It still had cringe lyrics. But Brittany Slays, the vocalist of the band, had a pretty decent voice in that album, and then the musicianship was not bad. The albums prior to that, the production was atrocious. The production was awful. Brittany was very, very dry when it came to her singing abilities. She was very dry. She was still... It seemed that she was like growing into her voice. So as every album came out, you could tell the production was improving. Brittany was improving. Which was why the album before Apex wasn't that bad, because Brittany was somewhat decent of a vocalist there. She had the power, it just didn't have... It just didn't have it all there. So she knew how to use the voice, it just didn't really have that kind of power and like a melody to it. It was still quite dry, and then musically it was decent, but it was still the very bland, typical way of power metal. When Apex came out, though, Brittany really came into her own and just mastered her voice. It was melodic, it had power to it, and there was like so many layers when she sang. It was so powerful and incredible, her vocals. The musicianship was on point, and lyrically, even though it's still about an immortal being going to kill this witch which has amazing powers, therefore, again, quite typical power metal, it was done in such a way that I could actually come out and actually go, you know what, I actually really appreciate this, because it was a concept album. Therefore, I could appreciate the storytelling that Brittany put out there, of how the story starts with the immortal, and his character and his backstory and what he is, and then going to meet the nemesis, the matriarch, the enemy of the story, and tell a bit about that, and then killing the sons, and then how they're all bad apart from this one son. So it had a bit of like relevancy in today's society, I thought the album did, even though it was quite fantasy based. It did have points to things that go on these days, with governments hiding behind things, and then people weaving lies that you then believe, but then you have to see through it for what it really is. But then at the end of the day, you still get decent people. And then armies as well. People will who want to fight will fight through waves of soldiers, and will not actually fight on their own. And therefore all these innocent soldiers that you don't have a problem with are unfortunately the ones who die. because you need to get to your main enemy. So I kind of enjoyed that because I kind of thought that was quite an interesting take, and then the fact that the story was quite interesting. Apex actually didn't end. It had another story to tell. It was kind of wrapped up in its own way. It wasn't really a cliffhanger. It was basically just the fact that the matriarch did get what she wanted, and then the immortal went back to slumber for how many odd years until he was called upon again. So the story was wrapped up, but obviously the matriarch was still out there. Which is now when we come to this. Unleash the Archers, as of 5 hours ago, released a music video and first single of the new album, which is the title track of the new album, Abyss, which carries on the story of the immortal and I guess what is happening with the matriarch. So obviously I don't know how the story's going to go because I've only heard this bloody track, which I think is the opening, because lyrically I've only heard the song once, so I don't really know the song inside and out. But I kind of got the gist that this is probably the first song, because it's talking about, well, it's singing about how he's awakening and how the stars have, again, kind of shifted and where he is, because it's been so many years, so everything's a little different. So lyrically it's the first track, and we are back with the immortal. So I like the fact that it's a continued story. I think it's really talented. It gives me something more engaging than just listening to the vocalist ability, the musicianship. I can appreciate also the lyrical writing of the band and the imagination and creativity that they put through, as well as obviously the creativity of song structures and melodies and the vocal ability and the musicianship, as I just said. So it just gives me a lot more of appreciation. Now, I was worried going into this new album because, as I said, I wasn't keen on the previous stuff. I only kind of like one album a lot, which was Apex, and the previous one, it's just kind of like, I can, dig it, I can get along with it, but I'm not really too fussed about it. Apex, really like. But because they've done so many bad, and Apex was just like this one good thing, it's like, can they really hit home again with this? Or is it just going to be cringe again and just the same thing again, just typical power metal? Are they going to improve? Because all the previous albums have been just bog standard power metal until it came to Apex, which is still kind of typical power metal with a lot of a modern twist to it, of modern metal, with good vocal abilities and the good songwriting and lyrical standpoint. So I kind of thought, where are they really going to go with this? Is it really just going to be the same? Because so far it kind of has been. So, Abyss, 7 minutes and 23 seconds. The second the song starts, it is immensely different from every album by a humongous landslide. I am thrilled about this because it's showing the band's creative ability. They are not of one thing. They are musicians, and they are showing me already their diversity, how much more they are capable of. That they're not just one thing and they can't do anything else. They are bigger than themselves so far, and they have grown and adapted into something new, and are showing that they are still masters of this other kind of craft. So the second the song starts, there is so much synth. There is an abundance of synth, which goes along with the storytelling, because this is now going sci-fi type of power metal. So it's a whole new realm where we now have sci-fi than the kind of old fantasy of the people fighting with shield and sword. This is going into space fantasy type of thing. So it's a whole new realm with a whole new soundscape. Because Apex had to have its own soundscape. It couldn't really be sci-fi when you're basically down on the ground with soldiers of sword and shield. So this now works for the lyrics. So we got a new concept following the story from previous, which is a great feat again. And you get the, as I say, synth work, which is something brand new for the band. And it just really, really works. It's a breath of fresh air because it's something new. And I appreciate that. You've never heard anything like this from Unleash the Archers. There is nothing like this. It is so different. So obviously the song is building. It builds for a while until the song actually really gets to the verse. It takes a long time. You got the synths going, then you get the band going, and then you get a bit of lead going, this lead melody, and then you obviously get Britney. And Britney's not going to come in with just singing the bog standard riff. She's going to show off. So she does her typical Britney Slays scream, where she just belts it out, and it's just got this melody to it. It is so much more improved over her Scream of Awakening. It has way more melody to it and fluidity, and it's got a bit of reverb and a slight echo to it. As I say, it sounds like there's layers to her voice as it kind of keeps trailing for them few seconds just behind her, which gives her voice this bigger than life kind of soundscape. It's really good. And I'm guessing she went with this for the pure reason of the fact that it's sci-fi, so it's space. So it's that kind of slight echo and reverb gives her that kind of bigger sound, like she's in a big space. It just can't. It's a good way to really think about what to do with the vocals, basically. So I really appreciate just the little thought put in there. And then obviously with the synth, that is obviously very, very new and a new sound for the band, given something incredibly fresh and new approach. And obviously, again, works for the concept. So everything is just working together and just everything's just new. And then when it gets into the actual verse, Britney just sounds incredible. Like, she has so much melody going through her voice when the band is given the aggression. She is so melodic yet powerful. And with the slight effects on her voice, it's making her sound so big. She just sounds absolutely incredible. The verse goes on for a fair while, so it's a very big verse, and then you got your chorus, and then your verse, and then a bridge section, and they're all rather kind of big in size. So it's not just get the verse over with. It's very short. There's not much to it. It's this short basic chorus. No, there's huge elements to it. There's shifting between the instruments and how Britney uses like the vocal melody. She doesn't just stick to the same vocal melody. She does kind of change the pace a little bit and tone, and everything just keeps shifting. So the song just keeps growing and doesn't really repeat itself. The solo is two solos back to back. So the first one is guitar, the second one also guitar, but by a different guitarist. So both of them technically don't really do anything really different from each other, which is what I would have kind of appreciated. One guitarist doing something really, really, really intense. So obviously the Immortals waking up in this song, so something like a bit unknown, so a bit of a panic, a bit of a mystery. So you got the panic and then you don't know where you are, so it's a frantic solo. And then the next part could basically be him calming down and then seeing this brand new world he's in, which is obviously seeing the stars and the beauty, and then being awake again and basically yet again alive. So the kind of beauty of his surroundings that he's been without for thousands of years, and then the beauty of his surroundings. So it could have gone into that soundscape, therefore working along with the storytelling that is going through the song. But unfortunately, the solo is basically just a lot of technical prowess. It's a lot of shred, and then the second guitar is, again, a lot of shred. The only difference is basically the kind of tonal shift. You can obviously tell when the shift is. The first guitar is playing with EMG pickups, which gives it this very, very tight sound. There's no warmth to an EMG pickup at all. It is incredibly articulate, and it's not meant to have any warmth or emotion to it. Its only job of an EMG is to be articulate. There is nothing else to an EMG. It's not to be warm. It's not to convey emotion. EMG is not for that at all. It's for articulation. That is it. You cannot do anything else with the thing. So because of that, it lacks any kind of warmth or beauty, just because an EMG doesn't really pull that off. So it's very bright and just as I say, articulate. There's nothing else to it, and then it's just technical. And then obviously, as I said, the second guitarist is still going technical. The only difference is he's not playing EMG. He is actually playing some proper pickups. I'm not keen on EMG. Therefore, it just has a bit more of a rounder sound to it. You can definitely kind of tell the sound just gets that little bit thicker, because it's just not wound so bloody tight that it lacks anything else. Because it's more unwound, there's a bit more variety to the tone. It's warmer. It's just got a more kind of bass sound, so because it's not as tight, it's still articulate. It's got a bit more roundness and bass and warmth to it, which I think kind of does improve. Both solos aren't technically that long either. They both have a decent kind of length for each other, but it's not overly long. As I say, it's not very varied. One guitarist to the next, they both really are both of the exact same mindset, so it's not much variation. And I say it's a shame, as I explained what they should have done. I think that would kind of have worked better, because it really would have given this more symphonic element to it, and more of a soundtrack to the concept that they are obviously putting out. I think the solo kind of missed on basically musically telling the story instead of having Britney sing the story. I think band and vocalist alike should both be telling a story, and I should be able to figure that out, but it doesn't really happen here. It's not bad, as I say. It's technical, and there's two of them, two different tones, both not overly great. I prefer the second one for the reasons I said. So if you really just want something technical and shreddish, you're going to really enjoy it. If you want something just that bit more like imagination and thought-provoking and emotional with melody, then it's not exactly here. Hopefully later in the album I'll get something like that, as well as the rest of you who would appreciate that a bit more. So overall, that is the song. It is very synth heavy. It is very different from Unleash the Archers. They've gone and done something different. They are not staying the same. This is the biggest difference the band has ever done, and I really appreciate that. The synths really, really work. It gives a whole new soundscape and concept to the band. Lyrically, it works really well for it. Britney's voice, with the effects being put on, makes it that much more alive, the song, because it's all working for this one concept that's in mind, which is the sci-fi nature of the story. Britney's voice, I really do think, has improved. It's just so much tighter. It was tight as all hell in Apex, but it just seems that she's just worked that little bit more, just to just have everything just be a lot more melodic, so it's not just intense power. The power's there, but there's just more grace to it, and I do think that's probably due to the effects as well as a bit of Britney herself. And again, instrumentally, there's a lot of stuff going on. There's some leads in certain aspects. There's a lot of different shifting going on through the song, and then the solo's technical, which is good enough. I just think should have been a bit better. But when Britney just first comes into the song with that scream, it's typical Britney. Like, she always has to start it with the epicness of what she's capable of, which is basically her now trademark scream, I believe. And she doesn't do it once, she does it twice before she even gets into it. It's just amazing, always hearing Britney come in for a scream. You just know it's coming. Something epic is about to happen. And when Britney does the screams, it's pretty epic. I'm really glad to see the band back. To rate this single, it's 8.5. It's great. It would have been a 9 if it weren't for the problem, with the solo. So that did bring it down a little bit. So 9, it would have been absolutely amazing if it weren't for the solo bringing it down. As I say, it's not bringing it down a lot. It's still a good solo, so really don't get me wrong on that. But an 8.5 is definitely great. Getting higher than that from me is when a band really is going out there. 8.5 is kind of as high as you get unless you do something really outstanding for me, and that is going to be very difficult. So 8.5 is pretty much the best. This was great. Couldn't really ask for much more, apart from that little thing with the guitarist. Other than that, I was surprised. I thought it would kind of be more in line of Apex. I was so surprised that it's this vastly different, and I'm loving it. It just works so well with them. It sounds like Unleash the Archers have been doing this type of sound for years. It's just amazing just how, like, it sounds like it's just them, and they've been doing it for so long, and I think that shows great talent. So I'm really hyped for the new album. Can't wait to hear the story that Britney's laid out, see if it actually comes to an end or if it's going to continue, because I'm loving the story so far. Can't wait to get into the next one. Really can't wait to see just sonically how this album goes, because that is really something that is very interesting with this. And then obviously Britney herself, just her voice, Jesus. And then I am hoping for more from the guitarists. On Apex, they were pretty good, but again, did struggle with the very dry sound, quite technical, not a lot of melody. So I really hope they kind of push that in this album. But even if they don't, this album is going to be pretty great. I'm going to predict that. I think this album is going to do incredibly well. So go listen to this song yourself. Bloody fantastic. And yeah, I say pre-order. I would basically say that. I don't think you're going to be wasting your money on this. So, been going for a while, so I'm going to leave you to get on with your day. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you later.